Welcome back, folks. You're listening to Of a Forgotten Storm by Amina Yahaya. Chapter 1. October 2012. The idea of traveling several miles away just to celebrate joy with other people still doesn't add up to me. At least not with the kind of relatives my father has. I find it so unnecessary and time-consuming. The road was crowded with vehicles, most of which were traveling to their hometowns or anywhere there were loved ones, just to celebrate with happy faces. It had been a long tradition for people who valued it, just like my father. I glanced at Abba and then looked down. I couldn't tell if he was tired or something else. He was keen on driving me around, whether to school, shopping, or visiting a friend. Although there is a driver to do that, traveling like this brings us closer to one another. My dad loves being the chauffeur for his angel, as he likes to put it, the love of his life. I know I am. Life has given us so many blows, so it has always been the two of us, like a cell phone and a battery. It had been 2 hours since we left Abuja, where we live, and Abba wasn't willing to say a word to me. I must have offended him. Maybe that's why he looks so serious. It was already so boring, and I know he felt it too, having to stay quiet for so long. To top it all off, the signal was pretty unstable on this road. For the umpteenth time, I rolled my eyes at the latest iPhone I was using. The battery was down too, as if it wasn't fully charged before we hit the road. I cringed at myself and looked out through the window. The blazing midday sun shone relentlessly on the travelers and the roadside vendors. I was quite sure it was hot out there. I inwardly thanked Allah for being in that car. Sometimes I feel like a complete hypocrite mentioning him. And I don't even want to go there or think about it. Brushing the thought away, I glanced at Abba again, and his attention was centered on the road. On normal occasions, it would have been a banter. He'd have shared so many stories with me by now, telling me how he used to travel in commercial transport to get to Abuja before he even got a job, let alone owning a car. And sometimes it was hitchhiking he relied on. There are remarkable stories, which always make it fun for us traveling together. I love it, and I missed it today. Some were moral lessons, which I neither use nor throw away. I myself have no idea why I'm saving them up instead of just shoving them in the trash bin along with many others. But I couldn't bring myself to do that. It was my Abba we are talking about. I love him too much to throw his memories away like that. Abana, Papi, Daddy, I sang like a 3-year-old child and pouted. I knew he couldn't resist that playful side of me. I am sorry, Papi. I know I shouldn't have said that. Will you forgive me? I won't say it again, ever. And I knew I looked so apologetic, but I was sincere. So I smiled at him, and his eyes softened, creasing his lips with a smile. I had earlier told him that his family doesn't care about him, only his money, which is the truth. Abba knows that very well too, but he has an agenda to care for them despite all that. He doesn't want to sever the family ties they share. It seems like it. They were his blood, and such ties are not easily cut off just like that. Those are his exact words. His father's last wish was to unite them as a family and save the relationship. After all, life has shades of different dark colors, and some people will always have their greed. Indeed, there's so much darkness compared to light in this life, and I have witnessed that. Hey, it's okay. I'm not mad at you. It's just that sometimes we tend to overlook some things for something bigger. They are my blood family. I care for them, and they are not all that bad, dear. They have their way of doing things, he said nicely with a smile. Trust him to be so positive when it comes to his family. And he also wants me to have a family other than him. He is not so blinded as to not notice that I don't get along with anyone, those creepy monsters. Abba could only try, but it will never happen. In my life, there's only him and nothing else. He's my only family, and so it will continue to be. I gasped. You got me worried, Abba. I thought you were mad at me. I'm not mad at you, but don't say that ever, he warned, pointing a finger at me to make a point, and maybe I got it. Allah will also reward us for visiting them, he added. I won't, inshallah. I used my fingers to zip my lips with imaginary zippers, and we both smiled. That was a slip of the tongue too, and it won't happen again. I will always love you, though, I added. I know, my kitten. After all, you are my favorite daughter. Abba said teasingly, waiting for a comeback. He knew I was never one to keep things to myself. Ha! because I am your only daughter. That's how it continued until we entered Kaduna, where we made our first stop at my grandaunt's. I made sure I tied my small veil into a hijab before I was welcomed by the old lady's wrath. I was dressed in a turquoise abaya imprinted with white florals. It complemented my skin color really well, Asabe said so too. I might not like her, but she always tells the truth, and I know when she does things to impress me. However, even I know I look good today. With our car parked outside our destination, Abba and I walked inside the house. Ina Yalva is one of the few people I don't joke around with. God, she's so intimidating. It always surprises me how I find myself being very careful in front of her. We're in that neutral relationship zone. Although I sometimes like her for loving my dear father dearly, she treats him like a son. Ina Yalva is Abba's second maternal aunt, so with my sharp tongue, I choose to stay away from that old woman to avoid a slip of the tongue. She won't think twice before ratting me out to my father and creating a mess for me. After all, she doesn't care about my father's wealth like the others who hide behind their smiles. Ina wuni ina! Abba greeted as he sat on the fully carpeted floor, while I sat on the sofa and greeted the old lady doing tasbih with her fingers. Unlike my Abba, I will never sit on the floor just to greet anyone or to show respect to any elder. It was a tradition to at least squat down, some even bend, and some people like my Abba do the sitting type. I sometimes wonder how he does it outdoors, since he says religiously you shouldn't bow to anyone. How was the trip here, Adamu? Ina Yalwa asked. She was a refined old lady, so religious and magnificent. Even at her old age, she was still energetic. With the way she worked around her house, I am sure people like me would be put to shame. She still does her house chores. Her house is always sparkling clean, and she even cooks. She has chased countless housemaids brought by her children to help her, and she refuses to move in with any of them. Alhamdulillah, Ina. Abba Abuja, good afternoon. It was Ismail coming into the not-so-big living room of his grandmother. His mother was Ina's fifth daughter, and he has been staying with her forever. I minded my business, not sparing him even a glance. Nonetheless, that amiable smile creature never does the same. Ismail is not my kind of person. He's too simple and ends up smiling like a fool all the time. Also, for some unknown reason, he is always willing to talk to me. It was like a must-talk-to-me prophecy was written in his life, always with that same eerie smile. Geez, he is annoying. Noori, how was your trip? You look so tired. I inwardly grunted. Is that any of his business? Too bad Abba and Ina were there, and there was no way to tell him off. I hate it when he calls me Noori. It boils my blood. Only my father is allowed to. But Ismail always calls me that like some puppy, making it sound as if I were 2 years old, desperate for someone to play with me, and he came to the rescue. Maybe I was, but now there's no need to make me feel like a child. It was good afternoon, I said sharply. I didn't want his grandmother to start with me that afternoon because of her favorite grandson. It's like this poor guy still can't handle my voice, or it's just his weirdness getting the best of him again. Sometimes he behaves like a lost cause listening to me. He is in dire need of help, I must say. If only they'd believe me when I say so. Ina Yalva and Ismail had spent the last Ramadan at our home, and I had to endure that look on his face for 23 days since they came a few days after the fast had started. One can only imagine how much I had to go through with him and his grandmother around me like some surveillance cameras. There's something he said about his smile being Sana. If only it was less creepy, I thought.